Episode 121, Breaking Barriers, Non-Traditional Social Work, on the Social Workers Rise podcast. Hello, and welcome to Social Workers Rise, where we inspire social workers to connect, expand their knowledge, and change more lives than they ever thought possible. We will talk everything social work on every level from micro to macro. We are going to hear stories of social workers who are doing big things, learn new skills, and most importantly, give you actionable steps to make a difference today. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Social Workers Rise. It is your host, Catherine here. I am a therapist, social worker coach, also a speaker and course content creator. And I love doing a little bit of everything because it allows me to use my social work skills in new and interesting ways. The newest way that I am using them is I've been working on my public speaking. Yes, I haven't told very many people about it, so you are one of the first to know about it, but I am working on my speaking skills so that this year in 2023, I'm going to be a keynote speaker somewhere. I am manifesting this right now and telling you right now. And this is part of me breaking my own barrier, right? My own mindset barrier saying, like, oh, who's going to listen to little old Catherine, right? Who wants to hear what I have to say? A lot of people want to hear what I have to say. And it's knowing myself that what I have to say is important, that I have some amazing experiences. I have some great training. I have years of therapeutic expertise that crowds of people need to know about. And we need to be breaking these barriers that mental health therapists are not allowed to be public speakers, because I think that's some BS. We're going to keep this PG. But this is part of how I'm breaking barriers for myself. So I thought that the theme for March for Social Work Month was really interesting. And I did some research. So according to socialworkers.org on the NASW website, the Social Work Breaks Barriers theme was really inspired a lot by the history of social work, in addition to the stories of social workers like you and I about how we're really breaking the barriers that prevent people and communities from thriving. Here on this podcast, I consider you and me as social workers communities that need to thrive, right? We're a community of social workers. So this is definitely applicable to us. And I'd like to encourage you to think outside of just helping the clients, but also helping yourselves and your fellow colleagues and other social workers about what is it that they need? What do we need to be advocating for ourselves, right? What are those barriers that have been put in our way that we need to just kick down and smash to the ground? So I'm just going to read you a little bit about what they released on their statement. And just to give you a little history about social work has existed for more than a century. The profession can be traced a large part of its origins to Jane Hull Adams and Ellen Gates Starr, who in 1889 opened Hull House in Chicago to provide social services to the area, which had a large immigrant population. Other social work pioneers include anti-lynching advocates and women's rights activists Ida B. Wells and George Edmund Haynes, who was a social worker who has co-founded the National Urban League. So these and many, many other social workers in history also break barriers. Frances Perkins, the first female labor secretary during the Great Depression, and others helped secure benefits that we continue to use today, such as the 40-hour work week, minimum wage, and Social Security benefits. Other social workers, like past NASW President Whitney M. Young Jr., worked in collaboration with President Lyndon B. Johnson and other leaders during the civil rights era to break down the barrier of employment discrimination so Black people could gain access to better paying jobs. So, thanks to the paths paved by these pioneers, social work is now one of the fastest growing professions in the United States. According to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, there were 715,000 social workers in 2020, and that number is expected to grow more than 800,000 by the end of this decade. So there is a need for you. Your skills are in very high demand. This podcast is going to go a little bit differently because I'm sharing with you the interview that I did on the Courage Over Fear YouTube channel with Amanda Fludd, who's an LCSW. And this is a really cool series that she did during Social Work Month on what it means to break barriers in social work. And she interviewed all sorts of social workers about how they break barriers and what that means to them. A little bit about Amanda. She's a licensed clinical social worker based out of New York. And she's also an entrepreneur, combining her expertise in psychotherapy and coaching to create experiences and transformation for her clients. Her life changing work is done through retreats, group coaching, speaking, and one on one sessions. As a mental health expert for over 15 years, she understands the unique connection our minds, bodies, and traumas play into how we show up or don't show up in our business and other relationships. So the links are there in the show notes. Definitely check out her YouTube channel. She has so many interviews with other social workers on there. And she was gracious enough to let me share the interview that her and I did together on the podcast for you today. So, with that, I invite you to relax, sit back, and enjoy the show. Also, I do want to mention before we get into that there's a new feature on here that allows you to support the podcast. So if you can give $10, $5, even $1 a month, this goes a really, really long way in helping to ensure that I'm able to continue to show up for you. I'm able to do the research, have the guests on, and really provide quality information that you have come to expect from the podcast. And I want to thank everyone who has so far joined as a monthly contributor. It means so, so much to me. I truly appreciate it. And with that, we're going to hop right into the podcast.
Okay, so welcome to our series, and we're back. I mean, we've been interviewing a social worker a day, yes, for like 30 days. It feels like forever at this point, but it's been awesome to get to know so many different people. And the reason why is, we are celebrating Social Work Month, and social work is such a dynamic profession. And I think despite all that we do, and despite it being one of the fastest growing professions, composed of some brilliant, intelligent, emotionally strong, and gifted professionals who are committed to the populations that they serve, it's still a field that's really misunderstood and undervalued. And I think within this series, we get to explore that a bit and get to see it through the eyes of some people just doing some fabulous work. So my name is Amanda Fludd. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a speaker, coach, entrepreneur, curator of this audacious project here. And I'm really excited to host space with Catherine Moore, who's also a licensed clinical social worker, as well as a public speaker, a podcaster, a coach, mental health therapist. Listen, she got it all going on, honey, right?
So we do it all. We do it all over here.
Yes. Like a real social worker, I feel like we just don't do one thing. We cover it all.
Yeah. What hat am I wearing today?
Okay. All right. So, oh my goodness. And you're wearing it well. So welcome. And we're going to get right into it. So Catherine, what does breaking barriers mean to you?
So to me, breaking barriers is really about redefining what social work is and what our limits are, and really rising above the expectations that other people have for us. Because in this industry, it's been traditionally just like traditional jobs. I'm gonna be a therapist, right? Or I'm gonna work in the government. So really redefining what all does this growing field of social work look like for us, and I'm here for it. I love it.
I love it. And from the description of what you do, honey, you are not in the traditional realm at all. You have not limited yourself to, the traditional roles that we think about for social work, which I think is cool because you give us some new ideas of what it could look like, right? So, can you tell us about your work and the evolution of social work for you and, how you break barriers and all the things that you do?
Yeah. So the short and sweet of it is I am a podcaster, a public speaker, and a therapist. So a little non-traditional, traditional mixed in there. I love it. But as far as the podcast, it's the Social Workers Rise podcast. And I started this in January of 2020 to just break those toxic narratives that we have been getting in the social work field, as far as there's no money and just expect to be burnt out. I thought that was some BS. I'm like, I'm going to do what I can in my little bubble to change that. So that's what I do.
I love it. And I feel like that's how it starts with us. We start to like claim a bubble and we just work some magic with it. But it's cool to hear that you're showing up in a sense of like media and using your voice too, right? And so in that sense, I don't even think you're in a little bubble. You're probably in a really big bubble because you get to use a medium that gets to like reach people in so many different ways and capacities too, right?
Right, exactly. And it's another way that you can break your own barrier, because I just started out thinking I'll do my own little bubble. And as you continue to work and grow and show up, it gets bigger, like bigger than you ever thought it was. So in a way, you're breaking your own barriers.
Oh, get it. Yes. I love that. So you're pushing the envelope and you don't even know that you're pushing it. I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Who? And wasn't really going to go in this direction, but what do you love about change from this lens of podcasting?
Hey, it's Catherine here. I hope you are enjoying this episode. We're going to take a quick break to listen to these ads from our sponsors. Do you want to make your own podcast? Spotify has a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. And this is the platform that I use because it makes it so simple to record and distribute your podcast all in one place using your cell phone. What you need to do is download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. If you're planning to take the BBS Law and Ethics exam, the ASWB Master's or Clinical Licensure exam, or if you're studying for the MFT exam, then you need a proven program that can help you understand the exam questions and pass with confidence. If this is you, I highly recommend the Therapist Development Center. I personally use TDC to pass my law and ethics and clinical exams and found the program provided me with everything I needed to pass with confidence. TDC's program integrates various ways of learning in an organized fashion, containing all of the information you need to pass without the overwhelm. And now, bonus, TDC is also offering a library of continuing education courses that fulfill your license renewal requirements and will support you in your career development. If this sounds like something that you need, visit their website, therapistdevelopmentcenter.com, and use the code SWRISE10 at checkout to receive 10% off any of their CE courses, including their brand new course, On the Edge of Life, an Introduction to Suicidality. You can also check out the link in the show notes. the thing that comes to mind first is hope, is that there's more and more hope within the field of social work, that we're not just limited to these to the jobs that are going to burn us out, right? We're not limited to low pay and a toxic work environment, but with that we are really able to expand and, like you said, push the envelope about where we're going to go, what we're going to do, and it inspires hope and creativity among change makers, and that's the part I love.
Yeah, I love that idea of creativity. I think that's been important to me in this work. I love just being creative, period. And I hope folks listening could take that away too, that you can also bring that part of yourself into this work. Because who would have thought like a social worker as a podcaster? Like, what? So to be able to do that and still hold other positions, I think is pretty phenomenal in itself. I imagine in your evolution, you've had to learn a lot of skills, right? And I think the skills of social work is super transferable. And I don't know if we always recognize the work that we do, but it absolutely can translate the skills itself from one to the next, right? Like I think about like clinical assessment. We're both clinical social workers. So it's like we assess problems, we problem solve, we may have to create a treatment plan for it, right? And I think in the same way, we can use that in every aspect of our work, right? I use it for schools, right? Like, let's figure out what this problem is. How are we going to solve it, right? I use it to audit businesses from a mental health lens to create trainings that meet the needs of their staff. So like we can effectively serve people in different capacities using the skills that we have. So I'm curious for you, what have you found to be the most useful skills or the most transferable skills or the most valuable skills from your experience that might be important for another social worker?
Definitely our skills. Well, there's a couple that come to mind, but mostly our emotional intelligence and the ability to read people, relate to people, read people's emotions, and gauge our reactions based on that, because a lot of people cannot do that. And also to the skill of resiliency, which I talk a lot about, but being able to overcome hard times. And with us being able to overcome our own hard times, we're able to then set an example and to help guide our clients through their own separate hard times, and be able to draw on that experience that we've had, in helping them, guide them through their own journey.
So resilience for sure for ourselves and to be able to foster that for clients.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Definitely. Love that. Do you feel like resilience has helped you to even just like push the envelope in terms of like what you do and what's possible in I won't say in your field, but in our field, but in the way that you've tackled the field?
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah, because any new venture is not easy, right?
Mhm.
There's always that learning curve. Like you said, there's so many new skills to learn with any venture. And so it's normal to face struggles and barriers that you have to sit there and be like, well, this was not expected, but what
Right.
do I do? How do I get over this barrier? What tools and resources do I have that I can draw on and tap into that's going to help me get to the next level past this barrier, instead of just quitting? Because I don't know about you, Amanda, but I did not come this far to get this far.
No, no. I was like, quitting is not in my vocabulary. I don't really know what that means, right? We're gonna figure it out. But I love that we put that on the table because I think sometimes too, like we make things look real easy, especially in our field, in our profession, and I think that's also part of the reason why we have this narrative about us is because people don't get to see how much we do to kind of make things happen. So I love that you're putting it out there. Like, yeah, it's gonna be hard sometimes. It's gonna be challenging, but that comes with learning something new and maybe giving yourself a little bit of like space and grace with that and fostering your own like resilience to get you through
Yes,
that.
exactly.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So finish the sentence for me. I wish people understood social workers, dot, dot, dot.
I wish people understood that social workers were are amazing human beings, because we do so many different things on so many different levels. Anything dealing with people, we're there. We got you. We can help in some way if you or your organization deals with people.
Brilliant. That's where everybody needs a social worker. Like, go find one.
Yes, yes. We are here. Reach out to Amanda or me.
Man, like it should be mandatory.
Agreed. We should all get assigned a social worker when we start a business or we join,
Right?
get
Right?
our first job.
Absolutely. But you got to pay them well, though, because we bring a lot to the table. I'm just saying.
For sure. Definitely.
Oh, Catherine, such a pleasure, holding space with you today. I think, again, thank you for your yes to the profession. Thank you for your yes to this conversation and your continued excellence in this field, right? And I do want to leave space for you to share, like, where can people find your podcast and to share the name so that, that voice can continue to grow as well.
Definitely. I am the podcaster for Social Workers Rise podcast, and the podcast is available on all major platforms. You can find me on Instagram at Social Workers Rise, and I'm also on LinkedIn with my name, Catherine Moore, LCSW.
And we'll make sure to share that as well. But brilliant. So again, thank you, and everyone else in the profession. We see you and we thank you for all that you do. Happy social work.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to another episode of Social Workers Rise. If you love this episode, be sure to subscribe and text this episode to a friend. If you want more, there are a few ways we can get to know each other and work together. First, definitely subscribe to the Friday resource email list. The link is in the show notes. And that's where you can learn more about the courses I offer, including Clinical Essentials for the Future Therapist and the Pulse Basics for Medical Social Workers. I'll also be sending out occasional tips and resources and other happenings within the social work industry. And for all your clinical supervision needs, be sure to visit risedirectory.com. This is a national directory of clinical supervisors for social workers, and we also provide free resources that you can use within your own clinical supervision. Lastly, if you have more individualized needs, I do offer coaching, individual consultations, and am available for public speaking engagements for social workers and change makers. Lastly, the boring legal stuff, but very important. The information in this podcast is not meant to be a supplement for therapy, professional advice, or clinical supervision. This content is provided as is solely for informational purposes. It is not legal, health, or safety advice. I am not advising you as a therapist. Organizations should engage their own experts to ensure any adopted measures are compliant with applicable laws and standards in their jurisdictions. The opinions expressed by individuals or organizations are their own and do not reflect the views or opinions of Social Workers Rise or Catherine Moore. References to specific products or organizations do not constitute any endorsement or recommendations by Social Workers Rise.